Yeah, my name is Pascal, and I'm joined by Andrew, Metadata Technology North America. Today, I'm going to talk to you about rich data services and DDI. We'll just focus on the DDI aspect of the rich data services platform. We'll start by giving you kind of a quick overview of what RDS is, rich data services. There are quite a few webinars out there if you want to get more information on RDS. Or you can always contact us, and we're happy to give you a demo of the platform itself. But today, the focus a bit more on how DDI is being used in RDS. So quick background about who we are. We are a small company based in the US. We've been working on data modernization, use of standards and technology for many, many years, over 20 years now. We have been privileged. We work with many organizations around the world with lots of national statistical agencies, research agencies, data archives, and international organizations. We've been involved in DDI for many, many years. I think since the late 90s, we use DDI2. We played a significant role in the initial design of DDI3. And we've also been working with all the standards such as SDMX or GSM. We're a team of both, we're most IT experts, but we have gained quite a lot of data science expertise. So we kind of like to see ourselves as hybrid data scientist or data engineer and data technologist. So very happy to be here. So I'll talk today about RDS, Rich Data Services, which is one of our platform. The focus of RDS has been, it's a product we've been developing over many, many years, lots of research and development behind it. And it's really kind of, it came together through our experience working with standards, working with researchers, working with data publication agencies, and trying to address the data wrangling problems as well as the data modernization issues. So as we know, researchers, when somebody tries to get data, they struggle trying to find the data, trying to find the metadata, put it all together, find the documentation, get access to the knowledge. It's a known challenge for many researchers or data users that end up spending sometimes more time trying to find the right data and the right metadata rather than do analysis. RDS is Rich Data Services is basically a web service. So it's a platform that gives access over the web to data and metadata concurrently. So you can call the web service and get access to the information, query the data, get the metadata at the same time, and then do a variety of operation. Without the way it works, basically you publish your data in a database. RDS inserts itself between the database and your end user to expose your information as a web service. Then you can also load metadata in the system, and then this kind of knowledge base together allows you to deliver a unified service for both data and metadata. So RDS is a collection of web services. One is, you'll find a few services around catalogs and data product, which is more the metadata aspects, where you can access information about the data sets that are in the system, the variables, the different classification and other properties. The data services are more for querying, and there's really two levels of services. One is kind of the record level service where you can basically go and query and see the different records and then filter the data, subset the data, and do various operations. We also have a tabulation service that allows you to create aggregated tables. So whenever you want to aggregate data to higher level, you can call the tabulation service and do various cross tabulation. There's also an open data packaging services. So the goal is RDS is first to provide the information over a traditional web service industry standards. So you can connect from application, whether the web application or Python or from Python and R. But we also obviously realize that a lot of people like to work offline. So we also have this what we call open data packaging services that allows you to download the data on your machine. So for example, you've created a subset, or you create a table of interest, now you want to download. I'll talk about that, but you basically get a zip file with the data, the metadata, the script. And the focus here is on rapid reuse. So whenever you get the data, it should be ready for you to use in your favorite program or software or application. And there's also a collection of administration utility services to manage the content of the platform. Now, RDS is a web service, but we understand that obviously not everybody uses web service directly. So it comes with a couple of applications for end users. One is called the RDS Explorer that allows you to browse record level data, do subset and download the data. Another one is called the RDS Tab Engine, which allows you to basically create tables and crosstab where you pick variables as dimensions and then do counts or various level of statistical aggregations on your data. We also have the RDS manager that allows you basically to manage the platform. You can log in there, add data set, and load metadata. You'll see some of these today. Again, we're not going to go in depth into the RDS demo itself. I would rather show you what we do with DDI. But all these applications are also available publicly. We have a couple of public data centers where you can go and play with data and these various applications. Now, what's important to see is that these three applications are not RDS. RDS is a web service. So the goal is also to build your own solution on the API. So for example, once you have an API, you can create your own web application. You can create your own dashboards. You can create maps simply by writing your own, your own software or your own code. You can also integrate in various places, mobile applications, social network, web portal. Interestingly as well, you can have direct access. So you can call the API from platforms such as R or Python or Java or C to do analysis with the data. So RDS caters to a broad variety of audience, both from users that like to use UIs and user interface, but also to researchers that like to work directly with the data with their favorite analytical platform. So it's of course we have the out-of-the-box application, but at the end it's more your imagination to do whatever you like to do with data and metadata. So I said the focus today is more on how we are using DDI in RDS, and there's probably more than 5, but these are the 5 we came up with. When I'll talk, and I'll briefly demo some of these, and Andrew will do a couple of demo, and some of them are just more kind of to give you ideas. One is on metadata ingestion. Obviously, when we add data to RDS, we can connect to a database. We have the data in the database, but we need to add a layer of metadata to it. And this is where, for example, we use DDI to load data into the platform. I'll show you a couple of metadata endpoints. So whenever you have a data set published in RDS, you can call these metadata endpoints to get the metadata. And we have a couple of formats for that. We obviously have the open data packaging services that I mentioned. I'll mention also that RDS is a good alternative to Nestor. I know a lot of people, particularly in Europe, have looking for different new options around Nestor, and RDS is kind of a bit of a modernized version of Nestor, which has been a great platform for many years and a great help to DDI, but sadly has come slowly to an end now. And then I'll talk a little bit about sometimes we can also extract metadata from your data files and generate DDI out of it, or metadata more broadly, and Andrew will do that demo. So on the DDI import, on the metadata import, it's simply whenever you publish a data set in RDS, you create a new data set, you connect to your database table, and then you need to add metadata to the system. So it's pretty simple. You can either call the API and then upload a file, and we can take JSON metadata or DDI metadata, or you can use the RDS manager to basically upload a DDI file in the system. So, for example, if I go to this screen here, which is the RDS manager, you can see there's different data sets on the left-hand side here. Whenever I select the data set, you can see this one has already been populated. But all the information you see here, the data dictionary, for example, we have the variables labels and the classification or the value labels. Properties such as description, restrictions, some nodes, some keywords, all these basically come from DDI. So if you were to publish a data set in RDS, it would be mostly empty because the only thing we have is a database table. And the only thing you need to do essentially, if you use the manager, you'll come here. At the top right, there's a little import metadata. You will drag and drop your DDI file. We will read the DDI file and then populate this metadata automatically. We can obviously support other formats potentially, but since we've been using DDI for many years, it's a great fit for RDS. And this is, for example, how you can quickly get a data set with very good and very rich and extensive metadata into RDS within a few seconds, literally. So that's the first use, which is kind of a natural use of the DDI standard to basically associate metadata with data. Another one is an API endpoint for metadata. It's something we added fairly recently, I think in the past 2-3 months. So even if you've seen RDS, this was not there in the past. So essentially any data product that we publish in RDS. So if I open something in the RDS Explorer, this is a data set published in RDS. So you can see, obviously, there's data, there's a data dictionary, and obviously we also have the description that you have seen. So this is useful because you can obviously browse it and see it visually. But if you want to access the metadata directly, now we've added a couple of endpoints, and there's naturally a JSON endpoint to any data set. Because RDS being between a REST API, you can get the metadata about your data products into JSON. But we've added recently a couple of endpoints. One is a DDI codebook. So if you click on this one, it's the same data set, but that now gets exposed as a DDI document. So the advantage of this, basically any data product that gets published with RDS, whether you create that data product with or without DDI, a DDI will automatically be created for that data product, which basically opens a platform to basically anybody using DDI. So you could, for example, read this to integrate in the catalog or to do whatever else you like to do with DDI. We've added a couple of options in there too, because sometimes a DDI document can be pretty large. So we also give you the option, for example, not to include the variables. So if you do that, you get basically only the study description, or sometimes to simply not include the summary statistics, the frequencies and this type of thing. Again, this is more from convenience because some of the DDI documents can be pretty large. I think one of the largest examples we have is the General Social Survey in the US that has over 6,000 variables. I think that DDI with metadata will range into the 15 to 20 megabytes, which actually is not very, very large by today's standards, but you carry that over the network. It can still take a little while. It's not necessary. So having a DDI endpoint for every data product is obviously a good way to advertise DDI, use DDI, and leverage DDI. I will, in the idea of endpoints, I will also take a little sidestep from DDI. The other endpoint we have is also a schema.org endpoint. I don't know if you're familiar or not with schema.org, but it's a very popular standard out there. Whenever you try to document various things, but specifically data, you can actually, a bit like DDI, provide your metadata in a slightly different format, which is called schema.org, which is quite popular and is also used in particular by Google, has been quite keen to use it. And the interesting story we have around this is that when you have a schema.org endpoint, you also have a bridge to Google Data Search, which is a service that has been in beta at Google for quite a few years, but has been now is official out there. So Google has something called Google Data Search, where you can go and try to find data. So the way we leverage this, if you go to the RDS Explorer, which is the data browser that I showed you, we actually get the schema.org metadata in the web page of the Explorer. And then you can register that website with Google Data Search for a sitemap. And at that point, or any data set that you have in RDS becomes discoverable into Google Data Search. So it's kind of a little 3-4 step process, but by having a schema.org endpoint, we have the ability to easily integrate, for example, with a facility like Google Data Search. So a quick example here, if I click here, you can, this is a search on the Canadian Community Health Survey. So basically you will go to Google Data Search, you will do a search, and as soon as I do this, these data sets show up as a search result. And then if I click on any of these links, this will redirect me to the RDS Explorer where this data set is being hosted. Again, this is not DDI, but it's a use of metadata, which I thought was interesting to mention, especially if you want your data to be discoverable in a platform like Google. Another use, as I mentioned, is open data packaging. So as I said, RDS has a service called open data packaging, which allows you to download the data on your machine in a little zip file. So whenever you do that, you have the option to select various things that go in that zip file. One is the data, obviously, but you can add to that generated scripts for example, to import the data in Oracle, to import the data in various databases, to open it in Excel, to open the data file directly in SAS and SPSS. And obviously, a couple of the components or the potential outputs of your package is a DDI file as well as a custom PDF codebook. So again, if I just go to a data set in RDS Explorer, I can come here. This is actually a subset of the data. I have a few thousand records. I can go to my data dictionary and say, okay, here are some of the variables that interest me. I'm just gonna select a few of them. Then I'm gonna come back to my data sets and go to selected. So this shows me kind of a subset of this survey data set that I have selected. And from here, I can go to the Open Data Packaging Service page. This says, hey, I have 7 variables. I have almost 6,600 records. Now I can add my output formats. From this screen, I will say, what do I want in my package? And I'm going to say, well, I'm a data scientist, so I want these guys here, which is the data in delimited ASCII, and a few scripts so I can read them in my favorite package. But I can also add here other things such as a PDF codebook and a DDI2021 codebook. If I do this and I will just package and download, RDS will go to the database, extract the data, extract the metadata in a few seconds. I have a zip file. Essentially, I can download on my machine. I'm going to skip that for the sake of time, where you will find the data along with your DDI files and your generated scripts. So a couple of other things where DDI is useful to RDS. One, as I said, it's great for migration and integration. For example, we use DDI for, let's say if somebody has a Nestar server, we would use DDI and combine it with data extracted from the Nestar server into CSV, combine both and load that into RDS. The advantage of this is you can almost entirely automate the migration of your Nestar server by, we actually have developed quite a few tools around Nestar where you can read the data, read the metadata, just in every little program that will load the data in a database, publish the metadata in RDS. And literally within a few minutes, you will see your Nestar dataset show up into a REST service through RDS and potentially all the UI. Andrew may show that if he has time today in a few minutes. We also have demonstrated similar integration with Dataverse, where, for example, you might in Dataverse have your catalog of dataset. You may have data files in various formats. You can have DDI files in there, which allows us basically the same way to read your Dataverse catalog and potentially complement Dataverse with a platform like RDS for data access and metadata access. So again, it's just another use of DDI to be able to basically read data, publish in RDS, and have a comprehensive documented data set. The last use of DDI that I'm going to mention, and that I will pass to Andrew, is going to demonstrate some of this, is we also obviously can extract metadata from other packages. Like if you have a SAS data or SPSS file, you can load it into RDS, then we will read the metadata that exists in this file format, and then extract and publish into RDS. By doing that, since we have DDI endpoints and since we have open data packaging, basically a DDI file is created automatically for your SPSS or SAS or data files. So these are just like various ideas, various ways we can leverage DDI around RDS. And I will pass it to Andrew now that will illustrate this a little bit more through a couple of demos. Andrew, I will pass you.
Thanks, Pascal. All right, so sure. I'm going to take the task of trying to show you how you can use, we're going to go from an SPSS file into RDS, complement it with DDI, and then show how we can get that to the users to use the data in just a few minutes. So this is the RDS manager. I'm going to go ahead and log in here. And I've got a demonstration catalog here where I'm going to come and add a new file as a data product for people to access. So you can see here, we've got databases we can connect to, or we can import from a file. I'm going to use SPSS, and I'm going to use an SPSS file that I've gotten from the Odyssey Nestar server in Canada. So just select the file that I want to upload. We can go into a SQL database that you have set up, or if you don't have one, for ease, we can just use the embedded database in RDS. And I'm just going to name this SPSS just to show that it's the test SPSS file. So when I create this data product, it's going to read the data. It's going to create a database table in that embedded database, and it's going to import that data in there. And that happened in a matter of seconds. So I've got that in there now. And if I come here, this is my data product. So we've got places there we can add some metadata around the data set. I've got the data dictionary here. And we can see that some of the variable level metadata has been brought in from that SPSS file. So we've got the name of the variable here with its label, and it indicates that these things have some value labels or classifications. So if I were to, I'm going to make this public so people can see it. If I were to go to RDS right now in the Explorer and see what we have just in that short amount of time, in this demonstration catalog, we can see we've got this SPSS test, but we don't really have any more information about the data set. If I go into that, we'll see that we have all the variables here and their records. We've got the variable level metadata over here, along with the code values here, and we can use those to filter if we would like. But all this information here in the records is the code metadata. So if I wanted to look at just the data, we can see that this is what's actually in that file. And I can show them side by side. So we've got the metadata from the SPSS file and the data there as well. So that's a great start. But if I have DDI XML, I can go one step further. So I'm going to come in here and use that import metadata tool that Pascal was talking about. And I'm going to import, oops, that's not the right file type, this XML here, which is the DDI. Again, that's going to do a little process where it imports the metadata. Give it a second, and we can see that we've got the refreshed information here. All the metadata from the study description, the keywords, some links have been pulled in. And if I, oops, sorry, if I go to the dictionary, we'll notice that we also have the question text that's brought in from the DDI as well. So with those two files that we got from the Nestor server, we can really quickly migrate to RDS. And now with that survey or data set level information, we'll see that we've got the question text in here now for the different variables. And then in the catalog here, we've got some more information along with a proper name for it based on what was in the DDI. Real quick, I know we don't have much time, but I'm going to come over here to the tabulation engine and get that refresh. And that file is showing here now as well. So when we import the metadata, we're able to determine kind of the different things that can be used as dimensions here to create a table based on, you know, the metadata that's provided. So we can use, you know, different categorical variables as the dimensions here and create some tabulations. I'm going to find one that's got a little more interesting or more values there. And so we can create different tables and look at them in different ways and whatnot. But as a user, I can quickly bring this into R as well. So we have our open source libraries up here. This is the API call that was used to create the table. We've got some code snippets to bring this data set into JavaScript, Python, or R. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this code here and bring that over to our studio. And if you don't know R, I'm sorry, but we're going to just go through here real quick. I'm going to connect to the server and oops. Oh. Should be that. Let's see. Well, this was working when I tried earlier, but in the classic live demo problem, it doesn't seem to be working here. All right, well, I might just stop here and let the others take a shot at it. If you have any questions, or I can work on getting this set up, but I would like to move on to have time for Colette to share as well.